many people that are intuitive people would say is everybody is intuitive. And to the degree that you have practiced developing it and listening to it is the degree to which it meets you and works for you. It's like you can breathe, you can intuit.
Welcome everyone to the Eons Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Alex Wolfe. And on the show, we like to have deep, intimate conversations with incredible people who are eons ahead. And what does it mean to be eons ahead? Well, it means they see things that other people don't see, and they're able to communicate that vision to the world and manifest it into reality, making a positive impact for humanity. They're doing things that other people don't do. They're pioneers, they're trailblazers, they're conscious leaders. And my guest today is definitely in that category. Her name is Monika Zands. Monika is an executive accelerator. She's a master coach. She's a spiritual guide. She's also the CEO and founder of The Rich Life, Inc. She likes to focus on working with high achievers and helping them uncover their unique gifts, deepening their relationships, enhancing their communication skills, and help bring clarity to their life's purpose. She's worked with some big companies such as Pixar, Northrop Grumman, the Stanley Media Group, and countless other small businesses and startups where she combines real-world business skills and her master's in spiritual psychology. She uses this to cultivate a unique and well-rounded approach to serve her clients. She's worked and mentored and coached with some of the biggest and most elite names in personal development, and she believes that powerful relationships are at the core of success and impact, and that's really the key for them to achieve their life's mission. She is eons ahead. She's here today, Monika Zands.
Yay!
Yay. Welcome, Monika. It's so good to be here with you.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be interacting and playing and exploring life with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's mutual and reciprocal. And I have a feeling we're going to get pretty deep today.
Yes. We tend to do that, don't we?
We do. And I'm here for it. And before we get too deep, I want to go back to the beginning. Okay. Did you always have a calling to help people? Yes. I love it. You knew where I was going with that.
Keep going. 100%.
Yes. You always had a calling to help people. Tell us about that. When did it start? Were you a young girl, or tell us a little bit?
So when I was 4, and this is, listen, it was probably from in utero. It was probably lifetimes before this lifetime. But when I was 4 years old, the story that my mother tells me all the time is that, so my grandmother had hearing aids, she had cataracts, she had vision problems, and I wanted to fix what was broken because I didn't want people to suffer. Now, the adult me can say those words. The little girl in me said I wanted to fix my grandma so she could hear and she could see me for her whole entire life forever. And as a 4-year-old, I thought forever was forever. So I wanted to make sure that she would be fixed so that she could see things and do things and be a prominent role in my life, which she was. So I wanted to build a laser that would create the ability to heal the eyes and heal the ears. I had no idea what that meant or what, but that's what I decided.
Wow.
And from a very young age, back long before there was reality TV, I would watch this show called Emergency 911. And in this show, you would see like helicopter rescues and you'd see big accidents. And this is like 4, 5, 6. And my parents, it would start at 9 p.m. And I should be going to bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And my parents, like I would sit outside their door because they would watch it sometimes. I'd sit outside their door and they'd hear me and kind of chuckle, but I didn't know that was happening. And it was fascinating to them that this little girl wanted to see these things that were really not age appropriate.
Right.
So from a very young age, there was a deep knowing inside of myself, a deep calling that I didn't want people to suffer. I really wanted, the way I would say it is I wanted to help people with whatever needed to be helped. So it started very young.
Started very young. It definitely sounds it. And I feel that. And then how did that progress into coaching?
So it's a long story, how that progressed into coaching, how it began. It started off for a long time. I felt like I wanted to save children. So another show that I would watch is shows like National Geographics. There was one show in particular where they did a special segment on children that had cleft palates in India. And they were thrown into the river or they were cast out of their families. They were a pariah according to their beliefs and to their society. And I remember sitting on my mother's floor crying and crying, and my mom coming in like, what happened? And I said, you know, these kids are being cast away or thrown away from their families, and they're not valued, they're not important. And that somewhere inside of me hit this chord of, you can do something about this. This means something to you, you can do something about this. So I started my quest of pursuing, I wanted to be a reconstructive craniofacial surgeon for pediatrics.
Wow.
And so what did that look like? Well, we had a neighbor that lived up the hill from us that said he had a team of doctors that helped children with all sorts of anomalies in their facial structure, birth defects, so on. So he said, I'm happy to have you come and you can shadow. Now, back in those days, there wasn't all of the legal situation and all the rules and all, like hospitals were not the way that they are today. That would never be allowed, and never would that opportunity afford me today.
Right.
But back then, it was his team, it was his thing, and he could do whatever he wanted. I ended up saying to him, yes, of course. My parents said, yes, she can do that. He would come and he would pick me up every Saturday morning, and I would go to the hospital in San Francisco with him, and I would sit through 3 hours, 4 hours, 7 hours, 15-hour surgeries.
Wow.
Where they would do facial reconstruction.
And you shadow him?
I would just be in there watching him and being on the side, and I was watching everything. I was watching what the nurses would do. I was watching the equipment. I was watching what he was doing. And then he also let me shadow in his rounds. So the after and pre and post-op, I would work and see what the families would say to him. And I'm a little girl. I mean, I am small. I'm 14 years old.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm a freshman in high school, going into freshman in high school. This all conversation started when I was in 8th grade. And there was a part of me that felt like, oh, I can do this. And it was like, there was no part of me that felt like that's something that will happen someday when you're bigger. It was literally like, I know this is a calling upon my life. And then I got introduced. So UCSF was one of the best medical schools in the country, maybe the best. And they had a microsurgery lab that the French doctor that invented microsurgery brought to the US. And that lab was at UCSF in this basement office. So the doctor, Doug Osterhout, he said, okay, you can work with Dr. Bunky and he'll teach you what to do. So then I went at the age of 16 and I started working in his lab, learning how to do vein and artery reconnections in animals to learn blood flow and recovery.
Wow.
So I'm 16 years old. And the thing I say is I laugh because Doogie Howser, the show, I felt like I was a modern day Doogie Howser.
I love Doogie
And
Howser.
I felt like I'm so clear this is a calling for me. I love doing this. I'm so fascinated by it. And, you know, I had the privilege and benefit of being able to be in these really complex, like you'd peel the whole face back and reconstruct, like undo the skull, and there's 2 layers of the skull so that there was more space for the brain when a child was born with pressure in their brain. And it was like revolutionary things that I felt like were just normal.
Wow.
That's what I got to do. And that's what I was compassionate and really desiring to do. And then I got to train first-year medical school students how to do that study in Dr. Bunky's lab. So there's all of this experience that I got to have thinking, I've known since I was 4, this is the direction. I'm going to invent a laser. You know, many, many, many years later, laser was discovered. And like to think that those ideas were ruminating and coming as this little girl.
Right.
And then I went to college. I went to UCLA, and college was a little bit more difficult than I thought. And I went to UCLA where there was a lot of competition in the science field. And so OChem and bio and all those classes were really hard. And the curve was very slanted because there was a lot of these kids that came from foreign countries that their livelihood based upon they had to become a doctor or a surgeon and the best at their field. And so I'm competing for grades and for accommodation with that. And it was tough.
Mm.
And then I wasn't great at test taking. I was great at learning and I was great at interaction, but I wasn't great at test taking. I got nervous.
Right.
So I went to take the MCAT, which is your entrance exam to get into medical school. And at that time, whether it was an ego or whether it was a standard or whether it was a combination of all of that, but I believed that I should go to the best medical school because I had been involved in doing so much for so many years already
Right.
that I didn't want to start not there.
Right.
Well, anyway, I didn't get into Stanford. I didn't get into UCSF. And I didn't get into one other school that I thought were the top three. And so I jettisoned my entire medical journey.
Wow.
I thought, this isn't my path. It wasn't meant to be. I got into Columbia post-baccalaureate, which required that I did one extra year of science classes to redo some of the ones that I didn't get such great grades on because they really wanted an A average and I had a low B or a high C average. So you do 1 year and then you matriculate right into medical school. And there was a part of me that said, nope, that's not good enough. So we were talking earlier just before we started today, like what if?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times in my life where there was a trajectory that was really clear and I was doing all the work and a deep dive and the learning. And then the universe pulled me in a different direction. So I was very lost. I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
And I moved to Europe. I had family in Europe. I'm a first generation American. My father was from Germany. My mother was second generation. Her parents were also from Europe. So I'm second generation on that side. So a lot of Europe. So I said, I'm going to go to Europe. I'm going to have an open-ended ticket and I'm going to figure out my life.
Wow.
Because from 4 to the age of 20, I knew what I was going to do with my life.
Right.
I did everything I needed to do to get there.
Wow.
And then I'm 20 years old and I'm like,
Clean
I don't
slate.
even know who I am.
Right.
So I felt very, very lost. I felt very scared. And there was part of me that felt like maybe I should take my life. Maybe I'm done here on this planet.
Wow.
Because if you know what you're going to be your whole life and then all of a sudden you have no idea what the purpose of your life for those years was, it was very confusing.
Identity crisis.
Yeah, massive.
Massive.
So I got on a plane. My parents were nervous and scared, a young woman with a backpack, open-ended ticket to Europe. And the first place that I went was to Germany, which is where I had a family spoke the language so that I would be safe. And I made my way. I had a friend in Paris, so I lived there for a couple of weeks. And then I went to London where they speak English, so there. And then I started finding my way, immersing myself in different things. Met some beautiful friends, got a job working in a bar, traveled to 14 different countries over that year. And then one day I got a call from a friend who was in Northern California. And he said, have you ever seen the movie or heard of the movie Toy Story? And I said, I've heard of it. And he said, great. Have you ever heard of John Lasseter? And I said, no. And he said, great. We are interviewing for a position to be the assistant to John Lasseter. So would you come for the interview? And I'm like, I'm in Europe. And he's like, I know, but you'd be great for it. And they need someone who doesn't know anything about him.
Wow.
I'm like, great. Okay. So I flew home.
What
and
an
I
opportunity.
was in that moment, I was also in Germany. My grandmother was dying of cancer. And so I was kind of there doing some of that as well as my life and thought, it was purpose again. I was by someone's side while they were going through that transition. So it felt like reminiscent and familiar for me. And this felt like so out of left field. But my friend said, come, just try it. I come, they hire me. It's a part-time job. And so I work. And I start learning the ropes and I meet him and I learn from him. And it's one other woman and I are his 2 assistants. And that turned into 3.5 years later. I became a full-time and I was his assistant. I learned about directing. I learned about production. I learned about storytelling. I learned about animation. I learned from one of the greatest storytellers to ever have lived, in my opinion.
Wow, incredible.
So what I loved about storytelling was the reality and the healing modality that storytelling actually was. Because many of John's movies were about his childhood.
Oh, wow.
He was a twin and there was a lot of stuff that he grew up with. And so he'd use these characters in Toy Story or in Cars or in planes to share and heal his life.
Wow.
And a lot of people didn't know that.
Right.
I just got privileged to see and learn and hear all the background stories and all the trauma.
Right.
And little did I know that the desire to help and heal was still there, but the way I was going to heal wasn't going to look anything like I thought.
Yeah. Different method.
Very.
Wow.
So I worked for Pixar for a while, and then there was some funny stuff that happened at Pixar. Politics, hierarchy, people not liking how much access I, as a young, ambitious 23-year-old, because I still was that ambitious girl, they didn't like the access that I had to John. And so to a certain degree, I got kind of like, you do not get to do anything other than this for the rest of your life. You're cut off. I'm like, I'm too ambitious for this. No one can tell me how I can live my life and can't live my life.
Right.
What if I had stayed at Pixar? What if I had become a producer and a director in my dream? But I wasn't willing to have someone tell me that I couldn't.
Right.
Now, maybe those people would have left and maybe things would have changed and maybe I could have stuck it out. But my true North Compass always said, you must follow your dream and your heart. You must. Even if it compromised pathways that might have been wild success and amazing outcomes, something inside me said, you don't get to compromise. So I then went to Los Angeles, and another friend, just series of opportunities, doorways opening. Another friend said, hey, I'll teach you how to edit. So I learned how to edit, and I worked for Northrop Grumman, and it was previously TRW, the largest military defense and space technology company.
Wow.
Learned all about satellites and technology, and still storytelling. I would do videos for technology that would then be shown to the Department of Defense.
Wow.
I would do classified videos. I would do videos with the technology to win billion-dollar proposals. I did videos that went to the Department of Defense. I went to the President of the United States, watched a few of my videos.
Wow.
So it was exciting, but it was also me alone in a dark room.
I see.
And who I am is a person, a people person.
Yes.
So
of course.
I got clear inside of my heart, like, I'm a storyteller. I'm more interested in the interviews that I do than in the videos that I'm creating.
Right.
I really want to do the interviews.
Right.
So I found out about a program, and at that time I was having some trouble in my relationship. My husband and I had met at college, and we were having trouble in my relationship. And I ended up realizing that I wanted to connect with the depth of who he was and the depth of who I was, and I didn't know how. And it was causing a lot of conflict for us. And so I ended up finding a transformational seminar that helped me learn that I was blaming him for everything that I was unhappy about or that was incomplete for me. And I went home the first day of the seminar and I said, I'm so sorry. I've been blaming you for years. And he's like, what did they give you? How did that happen? And long story short, or long story long, that was the beginning of me pursuing my pathway to coaching. I started finally learning that this was another way that I could be that support for people who were not fulfilling their life's purpose, their dream, and they didn't have the confidence or the North Star that I may have had. So I got to be a role in their life to help them find it.
Beautiful. What a story. I love the twists and turns, and it's wild how these what if situations came in there and just put you on a different path in your life, a different trajectory. And each time it sounds like, and there's a few of them in there, that you really had to tap into yourself, like you said, your true North Star you mentioned. And do you think that's intuition, or do you think that's your higher self or your inner child? Or now that you're evolved and you're this master coach and all that, like, what would you say that is for the people listening? What is that voice, that North Star?
Well, you said we want to get deep, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to share certain things that I don't normally necessarily share, because a lot of people say deep but mean not so deep. So for me, for a long time, I have not felt like I resonated with being human.
Wow.
It felt very foreign to me. It felt very clunky and difficult and frustrating and contained and limiting. And I was also raised by a very strict German father. So again, contained and limiting, and there's a right and a wrong and a very judgmental lens of life. And so I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I felt like people didn't really understand and didn't really take the time to get to understand who I was. And that impacted me in all sorts of ways, in all sorts of relationships. So when I got into this space of coaching, what became really clear was there was a way for me to be the full expression of myself. And the full expression of myself is not for everybody.
Sure.
You know, not everybody's going to resonate with the way that I share, the way that I see, or the way that I look. So when you ask about, was it intuition? Was it a higher knowing? I think it was both. I think there was a deep knowing, but not of a human knowing. It was a deep knowing from alternate realities, alternate lifetimes, alternate beings, like not from this world, not from Earth consciousness, but from cosmic consciousness. And so my relationship to the things I knew was very hard to explain to someone in human terminology and words that we needed to use. It was always a feeling. You know, I'd sit across from someone in a coaching session or in an interview when I was back doing my directing and my producing, and I would listen to what they were saying without their words. And I'd hear their insecurities, and it would guide the question that I would have. And I would hear them saying, please don't ask that, please don't ask that. And I'd say, do I have permission to ask you something that may not be comfortable? And I would sense that if I said it in a way and I was tender enough and I was present enough, that finally, even if we didn't use it in the final product, finally in their life, someone witnessed them being honest with themselves.
Authentic.
True to themselves. And so that has been really the thread of everything that I do in life. And a big part of my North Star is I don't question what is being shown or downloaded into me. I just move with it. I flow with it. I receive it. I accept it. I explore it. I wonder about it. I get really curious about it instead of, well, you know, I'm not sure if this is, it's like, this is truth for me. Let's see if it's truth for you.
It sounds like and feels like you have a deep connection to your intuitive nature. You're very intuitive, and it's an energetical thing. It's obviously very hard to put into words, but it's a skill that you've cultivated over many years. And it actually reminds me of my second mentor that I had. He said something very similar to you, how you started this part of the conversation, where he didn't really feel comfortable in this human body. And this guy was one of, if not the most intelligent human beings I've ever met. Definitely was eons ahead, like yourself, and such a character, this guy, but same sort of thing. He had just so much intuition and he was, you know, trusting these downloads, if you will. And I got to learn so much from him. So it's really cool to hear you share that. And I'm wondering, how would someone, you know, the listener who is maybe not the most intuitive right now, but what's a way that they could tap more into their intuitive nature and just cultivate this skill?
Yeah, well, I love the question because so the philosophy that I believe in and subscribe to, that, you know, many people that are intuitive people would say, is everybody is intuitive. And to the degree that you have practiced developing it and listening to it is the degree to which it meets you and works for you. So it's like you can breathe, you can intuit. That's just the way that it is. It's part of your innate knowing. And I don't believe that. So in my master's, one of the sentences and one of the statements that is a core principle is, we are divine beings having and using this human experience. Not that we're a human being with a soul, but we are the divine being. And then we're housed inside of this human expression, temporarily housed in this skin, in order to interact with your soul. Because the nebulous of soul consciousness is so esoteric, there's not a way to create reality in a construct like a human exchange. It's an energetic exchange. And so there aren't really words. It's an energy. It's
Right.
the aura, it's the ether, it's the everything extra.
Mhm.
It's the deep mycelium network,
I love it.
right? Because it's not explainable,
Right.
but it's feelable. You
Yes.
sense it, you know it.
Yeah.
When you ingest it, you know it, you feel it, you sense it, and you
Absolutely.
become part of something bigger than you always.
Yes.
So if someone doesn't have the practice or hasn't developed it yet, there are actually a couple of things that might be at play. First of all, they're very convinced by some external reinforcement from their childhood, from their current situation, from their fear of what the judgment of them might be, that it's not safe to go there.
Hmm.
So the first thing that someone has to reconcile is it's safe and essential.
Hmm.
And how do you get safe? You practice it, you work through it, you play with it secretly if that's what you need to do.
Mhm.
And then there's many modalities. There's not one way to do it. There's many modalities. So if people do breath work, that's a wonderful modality.
Sure.
People do medicine and psychedelic journeys where there's a lot of visuality to it.
Mhm.
That's a beautiful journey. If people do walking with nature, connecting with nature, attuning to, if you sit at a beach and you say nothing, what is the water telling you?
Mhm. I
What is
love
the
that.
sand telling you?
Right.
What is the wind telling you?
Mhm.
What is the annoying seagull? Why is it annoying you? What is that microcosm world you're a part of that you as a human being, because your soul's contained, feel separate from?
Mhm.
And intuition is about breaking down that separation. There isn't a separation between you and the knowing
Mhm.
until you separate yourself.
Wow.
So when we can commune with the knowing, then it's just how good of a listener are you? And then it's also, are you actively listening or are you quietly listening? Sometimes you need to be active in your listening. You need to engage inside of it. When I would interview people, it was active. I was hearing what they were saying. I was then asking permission to share. And then I was hearing what they were saying again. And then I would reflect what they would say, and it would bring this beautiful truth out of them.
Mhm.
And I worked on them feeling so unbelievably seen and safe that they had permission to listen
Mhm.
to what their real share was rather than their scripted share was.
Right.
And that, to me, is the art of intuition,
Mhm.
is that we are actors wearing masks to fit into every scenario we need to fit in, evaluating micro inputs on what to evaluate. And what if you could just breathe and just land
Mhm.
and allow?
Mhm.
And developing the practice of that allowing gives us access to developing our intuitive connection
Mhm. Beautiful.
and reconnecting what we covered and broke. Because it's always there. We just cover it,
Mhm. We cover it.
thinking we're keeping ourselves safe, but actually we're keeping ourselves separate.
Kind of the opposite, really.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
So it sounds like and feels like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's really it's a skill. It's a practice
Mhm.
of listening,
Mhm.
different types of listening,
Mhm.
and communicating in a sense with this feeling that comes in, this
Mhm.
energy that comes in, and just getting more and more accustomed to it, playing with it, and practicing it
Yeah.
into your daily life, and using it to make choices and decisions. And clearly for you, you use this to make paradigm shifts in your life. Very fascinating. And in that, we both know communication is like a superpower,
Mhm.
and communicating with this energy is part of it. How are some ways that people can, use this to communicate better in their day-to-day life?
Good question. So the way I'm interpreting what you're saying is, if someone were to be able to trust that they know what's their truth,
Mhm.
and they could then feel the permission in their collaborations with people or situations to share that truth, they would be attuning to their intuition and sharing from their intuition a truth.
Mhm. Yes.
And that when we cut ourselves off from our intuition, the ability to actually share from a place of knowing and a place of truth, it's kind of a little bit more like you're in your head versus in your heart, or
Mhm.
in your mind versus in your energy, being, your energy body.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is getting comfortable with uncertainty and the unknown, because what we're talking about has no meaning until you feel what we're talking about. You know?
Yeah.
So I want to make it accessible for an audience member to understand there are moments in your life. If I ask you, what's your favorite color?
Mm-hmm.
What's your answer?
Green.
Okay, why?
It's a good question. Always, it just has been for many, many years. I just stuck with it. I guess I'm loyal to green. Yeah.
Great. So
reminds me of nature, reminds me of money, reminds me of
perfect.
freedom.
Okay, so your first answer feels like it comes from the energy of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I know my favorite color is green.
Right.
I don't need to tell you why. I just know that it is.
Right.
But in human expression, but I need to understand why, because green isn't my favorite. So I want to understand how I might vibrate or connect to the rhythm of what green means for you.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't say all that.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, my favorite color is blue. Well, how do you know that? Because I know it's my favorite color.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start asking people a little bit about things that are their favorite, you start actually attuning them.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've tried to play with people is, how do I take them out of this consideration and all the reasons? So, well, I like green because of nature, and I like green because of money, and I like green because it means the heart chakra, and I like, and all those might actually be really contributing to why you love green.
Mm-hmm.
But where the origination of the knowing that that's true for you is, I call that intuition.
Right.
And so you need to have permission to be able to speak it freely.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us grew up in households without that permission.
Mm-hmm.
It was stripped from us. Every time we'd say something that was our truth, someone would say, nope, that's not the right thing to think is your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so we diminished it and we diminished it. And then we developed a really heightened sense of intellect to navigate around that.
Right.
And so it's not that we don't have intuition, but we disconnected from it because we can't trust it, because someone shared with us enough times, or someone's shared with us enough times, that you can't trust it.
Mm-hmm. Well said. It feels like it's coming back to authenticity. And authenticity is such a high frequency to vibrate on. And like you said, it's not, you said earlier, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to understand this, but the opposite of authenticity would be people pleasing, and trying to give an answer that pleases everybody,
or survival.
Or survival as well.
Because I think survival's bigger than people pleasing. I think people pleasing is a symptom of needing to survive.
People pleasing is a symptom. Oh, right. Interesting. How so? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So I think that from an early, Neo-Cro-Magnon being, that our eternal essence was a calling to survive, to beat the odds, whatever they were. So animals, temperature, gathering food, living in the right environments, getting away from the freeze when the freeze was going to happen. And what caused that innate instinctual knowing to go and do that? The desire to be alive, the desire to progress, the willingness to take the next step. And maybe it's desire itself. And that's what I believe. Maybe it's desire itself, just the energy call that we as humans call desire. That desire equals will to survive. So if you people please, and that gets you the result that people like you, and as a result of people liking you, it opens doors for you, and it creates financial opportunities, or it creates safety, or it creates connection, or it creates loving, well, then you've mastered that avenue of survival. And in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're dealing with all of these different levels and layers of, do I have my basic needs met? Do I then have my connection needs met? Do I then have my intellect needs met? Do I have my self-actualization needs met? Like what needs do I need to have met? And every time I have more needs met, I'm less focused on, I have to think about surviving, and more focused on, how am I engaging? Because at a certain point, when you make all the money that you need, and you have all the safeties and all the comforts that you need, at the end of the day, what's actually left? For me, it's this. It's relating to you and your uniqueness that's going to help my uniqueness grow.
Right.
I don't learn for me.
Right.
Never have, never will. Maybe it's service consciousness, I don't know, but that's not why I learn. I learn for you. Because if I learn it and it serves something in my life to help me live better, love better, feel better, and I can share that with you, even just a nano part of it,
Right.
and you then live a nano part of your life better, I've fulfilled my soul's purpose. Now, do all of our souls have that purpose? No. Souls have different purposes.
Right.
I believe that angels have different purposes. I believe that planets have different purposes. Gases have different things have different purposes.
Right.
And I love to let nature show me that there's a complexity to everything. My goal is not to simplify it. My goal is to move and weave within the complexity of it all. You know?
Like a dance.
Yeah. Because I don't think that we can just survive and have an intuition and everything works out. I think we need to dance.
Right.
I think we need to grow and learn and evolve and challenge. And that's what makes life worth surviving.
Right. All those, that messy stuff, that dance that you're talking about, getting in all those complexities can often be the qualifier in your life that you've actually done it. You've been through some challenges and then you've outgrown those challenges and now you have something to talk about. Otherwise, maybe it just goes back to people pleasing or just these, meaningless type things. So I see what you're onto there. Has there ever been times in your life that were extremely challenging that now you look back on and you're like, thank God for those challenging times because they qualified me for, times like this and conversations like this?
Many. I say to people sometimes, I feel like I've had more challenging things in one person's lifetime than most people have in multiple lifetimes, and many people.
Wow.
I felt very misunderstood for a very long time. Definitely had for a long time a friendship wound. I felt like I poured and poured and poured. I'm an acts of service, love language person. I'm a manifesting generator. If you know something about human design, I'm a go-getter person, but I'm also a dreamer and love ideas and vision and creativity and expression. And I'm a walking love bug. I love to be loved.
Yeah.
I love to love. If I can love someone harder, I will. I love it. Not everybody wants that.
Right.
Not everybody is comfortable with that.
Totally.
I mean, I think everybody wants it, but not everybody admits to themselves that they actually want that.
Right. Not everybody's able to receive it either.
No,
Right.
definitely not. And so I felt very challenged throughout my life. I felt unbelievably misunderstood, which has also contributed to why for a little while in my life, I wondered, do I even belong on this planet? Like taking my life felt like a really good option for many moments of my life. I had some manic depression things. My brain worked faster than most brains. And so it didn't fit. And I felt like a lot of my life, I was either hiding who I was to fit in because people didn't get me, or I felt like I had to make the best of surface because that's how I could fit in. And I never really would call that people pleasing. I just was navigating around what would give me the highest chance of success in whatever I was trying to do, a friendship, a relationship, a goal, or whatever.
Sure.
And what then happened is, I met some people along the way that had similar pathways and similar belief systems to me and had that challenging experience in different timelines of their life. And I also had beautiful love. I had a very complex family of origin, lots of nuance and chaos in our family. But also really learned what love was. Felt very loved by my grandmother, very loved by my mother, and loved by my father, but it was conditional love. That's what I felt it was. And I had a near-death experience in 2002. And when I really was ready to go, like, great, this is what is my timeline, great. I was not fighting it.
Right.
But in that moment, I was given a choice. I was asked some questions and I was given a choice to stay or to go. And I gave the parameters upon which I would be willing to stay.
Mm.
And it was, the only way I'll stay is if I'm a mother.
Mm.
And I was asked multiple times by this energy,
Mm-hmm.
like, are you sure? And many years later, after, years of healing and understanding what was that all about,
Mm-hmm.
it became clear to me that the ask was, you are not saying you want to mother your children. You are saying you want to be a mother, and I am taking you at that value because you can be that.
Mm.
And so I took on this role and identity of not only mothering my own children, but also mothering people.
Mm.
Mothering people through their mother wounds, their father wounds, their personal wounds, their cosmic wounds, mothering people, being the
Mhm.
space where they could be seen judgment-free, to the best of my ability, judgment-free.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I also really deeply identified with that.
Mm.
So I carried it as a burden too.
Mm.
And it was hard, it was heavy, it was a lot. And now I've learned, working with some support and my coaches and my team of people that I work with,
Mhm.
like, you don't have to identify with that, but you can still serve that.
Mhm.
And it makes it a lot more free and makes it a lot less like, this is the decree upon your life. But for 25 years, I've been living with it like it was really a decree upon my life.
Wow.
And my experience of life as a result of that has been, how do I keep serving and serving and serving? So my mission is to be of service.
Mhm.
My mission is to represent for people how they can be of service.
Mhm.
And my mission is for people to stop suffering.
Mm.
That if they don't have the things I've experienced as traumatic, and I've just hit the iceberg. I don't want to go into all the different things, but
Sure.
I had stuff in relationship with my husband. I had stuff with my kids. There was near-death experiences between me, my husband, and two of my three
Wow.
kids. Like, big things.
Wow.
There was nearly bankruptcies. There was just a lot of things that, one, navigating in this life, the capacity of my resilience
Mhm.
is off the charts
Mhm.
because I've been willing to face it
Wow.
without ever knowing how, and learning along the way and being super curious and super getting comfortable, super uncomfortable
Mm.
with the unknown.
Right.
I didn't
That's-
have to know to keep going.
Right. That's a code, is to
Yeah,
face,
I think it is.
yeah, face the fears, right? Face these uncomfortable darkness and still shine through and come out on the other end.
And celebrate, not just face,
Mm.
but I took on the lens of, this is intentional.
Right.
This isn't shit that's happening to me and
You're choosing it.
F everything.
Yeah.
It was like, oh,
Mhm.
I signed up for something. Okay, if I'm going to fail, let's fail big so I learn so that someone else may not have to.
Right. I love that.
And the only thing that I get to work on, and I'm still kind of working on, is not being so attached to not wanting people to fail.
Not being so attached to people wanting to fail.
Not wanting people to fail.
No,
Like,
of course.
I don't
right.
want people to fail.
Of
I would
course.
prefer that they don't have to suffer and fail.
Yeah.
But if they fail and they don't suffer because they see that it's a possibility that it's creating, hell yeah,
That's
okay.
beautiful.
So, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah. Detachment. It sounds like
Yeah.
detachment is
Yeah.
a skill, and I'm working on that as well. I find this year, 2024, there's a couple themes that keep coming up. One was, we talked about intuition, and I'm playing around with my intuition more and more, and it's a wonderful practice. I'm loving this.
How are you playing? What are you doing?
I'm listening, and I've always found myself a good active listener, like you mentioned, and I love having conversations with people and that kind of listening. But now I'm just really listening in the silence. I spend 15, 20 minutes first thing in the morning. I wake up, no phone, and I just literally sit there and breathe. I listen to myself breathe. And the stuff that comes through in these 15, 20 minutes, pretty remarkable. So I'm playing around with that. And I also listen to the fountain in my backyard, and just that sound of the trickling water.
The water is a magical teacher.
Right?
Oh my gosh, one of the best teachers I know.
There you go. So yeah.
She's breathtaking.
She's one of the.
Do you want to know why I say that?
Please tell me. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to hear what you have to say, but I want to share.
Yeah.
Because she knows no limit.
Mm-hmm.
Water finds her way through any barrier ever.
That's right.
She knows no limit. So can you imagine you live a limitless life? What does that look like?
Right.
You have no fear. You may get scared, but you don't get limited by the fear, stopped by the fear, because it's limitless.
Yes.
I sit with her often
Mm-hmm.
and ask her about her codes and how to be limitless.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you?
Yeah, thank you. I love it. I love the water codes. You know, it's been a big part of my last year is tapping more into the water energy and nature in general. And obviously water is one of the 4 elements. So how important is it for you? You've mentioned a couple times here, but how important is it for you to connect with nature? And what are some ways that you do it and people at home that are maybe new to it can connect more with nature, you know, whether it's listening to water or tell us some ways that you like to connect with
So there's
nature.
2 words that I'm going to say. And if my tombstone had words, these words would probably be on it. Reverence and reciprocity. Nature is by design reverent and reciprocal. It gives, often without asking, but it is asking for the appreciation for what it gives. Now, it doesn't ask the way that we ask. Hey, can you give me some water so that I can quench my thirst? But when we honor nature, when we convene with her in harmony and reciprocity and reverence, she, in my opinion, honors us. And when we take from her in an unbalanced way, she demonstrates how that feels to her. So when we sometimes experience a massive amount of fire, yes, it's unbelievably scary and very destructive, and it creates new soil, fresh, oxygenated, potent, powerful soil.
Right.
So she demonstrates destruction and life, death and birth. So nature for me is the thing I convene with the most that has me feel safe to be human. Because I'm nature too. And it allows, I'm so grateful we have pores because it allows my experience to feel the interconnectedness, the wind. My pores is breathing her and she is breathing me. And that has the container of my body not feel so imprisoning. So how do I connect with her? Man, I'm a water baby. I'm a land baby. I'm a Virgo. I'm married to a Pisces. Like I am up in her business all the time. I sit upon her with my bare feet, with my bare hands. I play with her a lot. I love to garden. I love to plant. I love to witness her growth. And I ask her a lot, like, ooh, I messed up. I have a fern. This beautiful, I think it's called Signalis is the name of this fern.
Cool.
And she's so unhappy with me right now because she needs humidity and I don't live in a humid place.
Right.
So she needs to live in my shower with me. And I wasn't planning on having her live in my shower with me, but that's the place where she's the most happy. Yeah. So I didn't water her because I was gone for 4 days and my shower wasn't going and she got really mad and all of her leaves are brown. And so now I'm talking to her like, okay, let's have an agreement. I know your roots are okay. Can you come back, please? Because I really want to learn how to take care of you. And I play with nature in that way through the planting of different species of plants, through understanding flowers, through giving offerings to the earth. When I'm in water, I'm always putting my head underneath the water and I'm listening. She sings, she whistles, she chants. She has so much to tell us if we are listening. And it doesn't mean, you know, we're in a time right now where a lot of people are doing medicine and they're doing journeys and they're doing awakening processes and skill building and practices. And it's like we talk about the codes that I'm getting, but no one's telling me what the code is and how to actually use it. They're like, I got my codes. What are your codes? And what I want is that everybody that's going to do any of this work, like tell me so that you are doing the thing I said early on, which is I don't want to have the learning. I want the learning to give away to you. Right. So when she has talked to me, when I lay in the water and she has talked to me, what she has said is a deep awareness of understanding limitlessness and flow. Truly what flowing through life is. Closing my eyes and saying, can I hear the blood flowing through my body? So like I have a stethoscope and I'll listen to my heart pumping the blood through my body to be in coherence with the water and the blood that's my makeup, 80% of me. Yeah. And so these are crazy little things I do that I don't expect other people to necessarily do on the daily, but if they really want to benefit from their connection to nature, they need to discover and design their practice, their nature practice. Does that mean going to bodies of water and giving an offering? Does that mean you live in the middle of the country and there's no water near you and you just do a bathtub because that water is coming from the earth?
Right.
Do a bathtub and give an offering to your bathtub. Do it in your sink.
Right.
You know, lay in the shower and sit there, not just to get washed and cleaned, but sit there to be replenished in your skin's, oxygenation and your hydration. And so these are the different things that I just create. Anything I can discover or learn from, or I'll see other people do something like, ooh, that's another really great thing. So what I would say is do a bunch of attuning, lay in grass, take your shoes off, step in dirt, ask the dirt, what does it want you to plant? If you don't live in a place where you can plant in the earth, get little planters and plant in your house. Ask the plants where they need to be. Do a little bit of the research. Pull your plants out and say to the roots, please root yourself deeply. How can I help you root? And use all of those things, as weird as it may sound, as a metaphor to what are your roots? You know, we don't realize how much we're rooted to this earth, but we are energetically. We have energetic roots. And because we have feet that walks on the earth, we sometimes think we stand on top of it, and that we're not interacting with it. We're just on it, but we're with it.
Right, connected.
And so I think if people start redefining that for themselves and finding little teeny, a daily habit, a weekly habit, a monthly habit, they'll start to feel what is the unique metaphor and code for them and what they actually are fond of. And then the question that I encourage them to ask is why? Why do you love that?
Yeah.
Because if you know why, you can explain it to me.
Right.
And what you can explain, then I can try. And if more of us do all of this kind of stuff, behaviors and habits on the planet, we create the web that will transform the things that need to be transformed.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It's really rediscovering and reimagining our relationships with nature is what it sounds like. A new relationship with water, a new relationship with the earth as we walk on it and
with it.
Thank you. Thank you. And new relationships with all these elements and really interacting with them and not just using them like for what they, we think they're for, but actually, having a more intimate relationship with them and being aware. And that's something that you obviously teach so much about, and it's a big part of your life is relationships, right? So, as someone, relationships are everything, right? They're business. It starts with our families.
It starts with us.
Starts with us, relationship with ourselves.
Our relationship, I think it starts with our relationship to the cosmos, something bigger than us that has us question it all. And in that moment of our question of it all, I think we experience separate. I don't know what I am compared to that thing. Then we start exploring ourselves. Well, what am I? Well, what am I compared to you? What am I compared to that? What does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? And that's where the birth of, am I enough? Do I matter? Do I deserve the love? That to me is the origination, is that we start asking the whys about ourselves. And if we don't have good role modeling around us or representation of how we might see it, we invent it. And sometimes it doesn't go in the direction that really serves us. And we take a lot of cues from everything outside of us. So I agree that relationship is at the core of all things.
On that note, so, it starts with a relationship with ourselves, like you said, and the cosmos. And then, we have families and friends and peers and teams and business and all these things. How is it that someone can be great at a relationship with, so many different of these relationships, but then struggle so much in a romantic relationship or struggle so much with a family member? Like, what is it about these different dynamics of relationship? Is there anything that you could share on that makes it, why is it so unique?
So first of all, that's a huge question.
I know it
Alex.
is. Yeah, I know. I realize that. But
It's a huge
if
question.
to try to narrow it down, like why are romantic?
Can I just ask you a question though?
Yeah, sure.
And you can cut it out if you don't.
Yeah, that's fine.
What part of you is asking this question of me?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing this. Like I have a great relationship with my family. I have a great relationship with my friends, my peers, my team. But I struggle in romantic relationships. You know, I've dated some amazing women. They've been some of the best relationships in my life, and they've been ups and downs. But even in those downs, I've learned lots, and I've embraced those challenges. Sure. But I just wonder, you know, and I live here in Austin, Texas. There's lots of there's amazing people, and a lot of these people are in relationships. But a common theme that I hear is like they're very challenging. Like so many people that I know are like, they find these relationships so much work, and it's so challenging. And some people are happy and all that too. But even when I start getting to know them, they start sharing like it's really challenging and it's really work. So I guess what I'm really trying to focus in on is what is it about romantic relationships specifically that's so challenging these days? Was it always this challenging, or what do you think?
So the first thing I want to say is a caveat, a disclaimer.
Sure.
I don't know anything.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay.
Same here.
I don't know anything.
I don't know anything either.
I'm an expert, but I'm not an expert.
Cool.
You know, I'm as expert as I can be in something that I feel very passionate about.
Yeah.
So the first thing is I want to break down a little bit of what you're saying, because I think this is really important. What is a relationship at the core anyway? Is, for me, an easy way to say it, connection. And the collaborative knowing that I am a lovable being that has complexity to it, and you are too. Okay? So right out of the gate, I need to acknowledge I'm complex, and that complexity may be very confusing for someone else. And in relationship to someone else, I have to deal with your complexity, which I may not have any idea how to do. So right out of the gate, we already enter into, oh my gosh, how the hell am I going to do this?
Right.
Okay.
Good framework.
So the first thing is that people think, I know me, so I know you. Nope, you don't.
Yeah.
And it's a common mistake and assumption, especially in relationships that have been over time. I've been with my husband for 31 years, and I still don't know everything about him. We discover things all the time, and we are so intentional about never presuming to think. Like he's the relationship I've never really had to say, you don't know me, because he knows he doesn't. And his come from with me is, I'm so excited to get to know you. Well, tell me about that. Why did that upset you today and it didn't upset you yesterday? That's so weird. Are you a different person today than yesterday? Of course you are. The wind blew differently. Your car drove a different direction. The smells in your nose were different. You are a different being every day. And why do you think that I should see you the way you were yesterday? It's not fair. It's not accurate. So I think that there's a huge misunderstanding on this planet that because I have proximity to you, I know you. Nope, you don't. You actually don't know anybody, really. You're getting to know them, always, forever. So that's the thing. Another thing is that each individual is their complex universe. Let's call you each a universe. Because science has begun to show, and all the work that I did in space technology has begun to show that we are not a universe. Literally, there is a multiverse, and there are multiple universes with multiple galaxies. So you think we're a grain of sand on one beach of all the beaches on the earth? Multiply that by whatever number doesn't exist in human terms. So there's you, there's the person you're in connection with, and then there's a third thing called the relationship itself. So people work on each other. You did this, you didn't do this. My husband and I have a term, we call it ping-ponging. Go back and forth. And you're both fighting to be loved. You're both fighting to be seen. You're both fighting to be right. Not because I want to outdo you in my rightness, because I want to be understood by you. But if you don't understand me, well, I need to show you how all the ways you don't understand me.
Right.
Well, relationship suffers when we're doing that onto each other, back and forth. So we not only need to deal with this, what I have to learn and what I get to navigate, we get to learn how to navigate the other person, and we get to navigate What am I creating with you
Mm-hmm.
that has never in the history of the universe been created?
Love that.
Ever.
Yeah.
Why do you think we should have a freaking blueprint for that?
Right.
It's complex as
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
It
Nice.
is very complex.
Yes, it is.
So we use the word hard. That's a matter of opinion.
Sure.
For some people, complexity is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
For Jan and I, complexity is really interesting and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's been challenging. It's been tough. I use the word hard. It's been crazy. It's been unpredictable. We've almost divorced. We've almost broken up. We've been through the gamut.
Yeah.
But here's what our promise was. We believe whatever it is workoutable. That's what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
So we come to the relationship, no matter how sandpapery and scratchy and uncomfortable it is, how stretched I feel, how wrong I think he is, how wrong he's making me feel. And we're going to work it out.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to figure out what is work on a bowl. Now, I am not suggesting that every relationship should work it out, because sometimes the complexities that you are don't work together.
Mm-hmm.
The way you work it out doesn't work together.
Mm-hmm.
What serves that? Your upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
How you've seen anything be worked out in your life, your primary caregivers, or the fact you didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
The boss that you had, the coach that you had, the music teacher that you had, the teacher, the nice teacher, and the good teacher and the bad teacher. All of those moments in your life were choice points on how I'm going to navigate relationship.
Mm.
And to the degree that we are traumatized and wounded from misinterpretations and misunderstandings in relationship, contributes to why we can or cannot navigate challenges in romantic relationship.
Mm.
So maybe in your lifetime of growing up, some of the relationships that you saw were really productive relationships, really healthy relationships. I know you have a very beautiful relationship with your mom
Mm-hmm.
and your dad.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly your mom, that's what you've shared with me about.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that there were moments where there were choice points where you interpreted something about what they did or how they did it that was either, oh, I want to do that. And so you always look for, can I do that in this relationship? Can I do that? And when they don't have the tools and their complexity doesn't match what you're looking for, there's a red flag or there's an issue for you.
Right.
It breaks trust. It breaks rapport.
Mm-hmm.
But you may not be conscious about that.
Mm.
It just is a seed,
Mm.
a seedling.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also things that are like, I never want to do what I saw them do. How they navigated this fight or how they did this thing. It could be one thing in your life or it could be many experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time you see that in a partner, you're like, oh, wait, I made a promise with myself. I will never do that. And we may be so unconscious about those promises because we've never explored this with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we're unclear that it is a red flag for us, we then act it out inside of our relationship. We put a person through a test and they're like, why are you testing me? Like, I'm not testing you.
Mm-hmm.
This is just who I am and how I am.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't necessarily have the identification of, oh, you're the third person that I've had that sentence of, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to look at that.
Right. Patterns.
And if we don't have someone that's in our arsenal, a coach or a therapist or a friend or a person that can call us out on it, then it's going to be a lot harder for us to navigate through that and resolve that inside of the relationship we're currently in.
Right. Very well said. You covered a lot of ground there. Some golden nuggets that I got to take away out of that too. So thank you. I'm sure the audience will truly appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. There's some major wisdom there.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit.
Okay.
We met last year at our good mutual friends TED Talk.
Yep.
Garen Jones.
Yep.
And Garen has a great comeback story amongst many things. And that's something that I love, is a great comeback story. You know, the comeback is always greater than the setback. Have you seen, and I know you've worked with Garen, have you seen many comeback stories in your life with the people that you've coached? And if so, you know, for the people that are struggling out there, and maybe they're working on their own comeback story, what's like a common theme that you've seen? And if there's anything that you could share that, you know, to keep them inspired or motivated to make this comeback story?
So yes, 1,000,000%. I mean, I would say that so many of the people I've had the pleasure and privilege of sharing, guidance with, mentorship with, are comeback stories because they're coming back to their true inherent nature. I think that's really what at the core is. Like, it's okay to be you. It's safe to be you. It's beautiful to be you. Tell me all about you. Share with me your gifts. Let me know who you really are and how you want to share that with the world. I think that for the audience, the first thing is don't be impatient with yourself. Give yourself space to actually learn what you need to learn. If you cut corners, know that some of the cutting is going to add more time on the back end because that's just what tends to inevitably happen. Convene with nature often. There's a lot of teachers out in the world that aren't just people. If you go to people and you disagree with their advice, don't disagree with yourself. Just go to different people. Because I think that if you keep going to the same people and you keep doubting yourself, they're not actually seeing what they're doing to you, but you are, and you need to catch that because you're the one that has to live with you. Right? And so we, especially people pleasers or people that really want to be loved and liked, and they look externally to find that experience, great. If you're looking external, great, but don't just leave it in people and don't just have it be your friends. Go to people, go to an event where you know no one, share a little bit about yourself and ask for someone like, what are you hearing me say? What did you learn about me? Because that neutrality of someone who's just met you might really serve you to take another pathway of what you'd like to explore about yourself. And I think that a lot of people in their come up feel like they hit a dead end and they either stay in the dead end and repeat the patterns that don't serve them because it's familiar, or they're not willing to land inside of the lesson. They're just off to the next thing before the lesson is actually landed. And so I think there's a lot of people that have a turnaround moment when, first of all, they're like, the beautiful thing about my friendship with you is how vulnerable and transparent and courageous you're willing to be. In our relationship, in our business transactions, I've asked you some uncomfortable and hard questions, and you could have said, make it look good and sound good. But you've said, I don't have an answer for that, or I don't have a good answer for that, or we're in the process of figuring that one out. And that level of being willing to be courageous, not for me witnessing you and being your friend, like it does help, but for you to see you doing that, that helps you know I'm safe when I do that. I'm not going to be judged and turned away because you've had challenges in your life, Alex.
For sure. Yeah.
And you could have let any one of those challenges remain a setback.
Yeah.
You could have said, I can't trust people. I have to do everything by myself. But here you are out in the world, sharing with people, doing a podcast, serving people. But the wound that you carry could have turned into, I can't trust people, so I can't share with people the way that I'd like to. So I think that a comeback story for people is becoming really great listeners, attuning to their inner intuition, kind of hitting the themes we've spoken about today, understanding that they're not alone and that people aren't actually out to hurt them, but people don't always know what they're actually needing. So when someone gives you advice that doesn't resonate with you, find 3 or 4 other avenues for getting that advice, whether it's a book or another person or a person you don't really know, so that you have a little bit more of that autonomy and a little bit more of that neutrality to explore within yourself. And then give yourself space and time, and probably 3 to 7 hours more than you would give yourself.
3 to 7 more hours in a day or a week or?
Ever.
Oh,
like
cool.
Whenever you're exploring something and you're challenged, you have a relationship challenge, your 20 minutes in the morning of just sitting in silence isn't enough. Because what you need is the space to break down, the space to be mad at whatever you're mad at about the circumstance, the space to have permission to witness yourself, because there's a part of us that is going through the experience. And there's a neutral, non-judgmental part of us, the observer, that is witnessing ourselves go through it.
Mm.
And if we don't give ourselves time, the observer doesn't have time
Mhm.
to see, oh, I see what you're doing there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or if you don't spend enough time being in loving with yourself,
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm going to see myself in that disagreement that I had this morning with Jan, and then I'm going to love her, and
Mhm.
I'm going to love him, and I'm going to let that go when I'm ready.
Mm.
And that letting go may take 10 minutes, may take 30 minutes of me wrestling inside of
Yeah,
myself.
feeling the feels.
But if I can be with it long enough in these moments of my life where I'm in the inquiry, on the other side of it, I have breath, I have vision, I'm reconnected to my imagination, my creativity, my loving possibility.
Mm. I love that.
There's a loving possibility for what could be different.
Mhm. On the other side of uncomfortability and pain, there's freedom. And we
Yeah.
need to take the time and space to really feel it and let it go. And then embrace the realm of possibility, which is limitless, like you say.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
And there's a tenderness too.
Mm.
You know, I think that we're hard on ourselves. And I think we've been
Mm.
conditioned, people that are really, you know, in a very capitalistic
Sure.
environment.
The
You know,
achievers.
if you go to Bali or you go to certain Asian countries where harmony and reverence are kind of their themes,
Mhm.
you may judge they don't work so hard,
Mm. Right.
but they do just the amount of work that's needed
That's,
to live a peace-filled life.
yeah, that feels better.
So maybe there's a way for you to do more working less.
Right.
But to eliminate the stress and to eliminate the things that activate our experience of disconnect
Yeah.
and separation is a big part of the turnaround.
Oh, for sure. I agree with that 100%. And Jim Rohn is one of my favorite, you know, and he has this quote where you should be working at least twice as hard on yourself as you are on your actual job. And I take that literally. I work, you know, really hard on myself, and then work just seems to actually flow a lot better, and it's a lot more fun. It's actually, sometimes it's work, but sometimes it's really just playing around with people that I enjoy. And thank you for that. That was a great reflection. Shifting gears a little bit, you also introduced me to an amazing artist that created the most beautiful, exquisite mushroom art that I've ever seen in my life. And thank you for that.
Just wait. She has 15 new pieces
Oh
and
my
the best
gosh.
piece I've ever seen her make.
Wow, fantastic.
Like, I'm meditating with this piece all the time because this piece has activated animal and plant awareness in it. And I just sit and I watch it and it tells me.
I bet. No, it's
But
magic.
please go.
Yeah, no.
Her name is Eden Slobin.
Thank you. Her name's Eden Slobin. Amazing art. Check her out. Fantastic stuff. The most beautiful mushroom and, you know, plant kingdom and fungi kingdom art I've ever seen. Tell us a little bit about your relationship to fungi and mushroom, and yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing. I believe, silly me in my non-reality. I definitely believe that I'm from the family of the mushroom.
Oh, cool.
I believe that their wisdom and their way of navigating and operating is inherent inside of me. It has been, and I'm very new to the experience of a mushroom, very, very new to it in my journey of life, but it is so anciently familiar.
Wow, I love that.
It's so anciently familiar. And my experience is they have traveled for eons, and they have traveled through space and time.
Yeah.
I believe that fungi is time travelers. They know how to shift realities, dualities, realms. And I experience they are limitless in their ability to convene with water, find water no matter where they are.
That's right.
And connect. And when you see the movie Avatar and you see the tree, that to me is the beautiful representation of what I believe a mushroom and the mushroom family and the fungi intelligence is. It's a cosmic depth of unlimited knowing of how to navigate the universal wave of life.
Wow.
of existence, because not all existence is necessarily life yet.
I love that. Mic drop. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. Elaborating on that, mushroom being this, ancient wisdom, time traveler, super cool technology, nature's technology that we get to tap into. Where do you see it going, in the next few years, specifically with, kind of what you're working on with mental health and achievers and just, average hardworking Americans? Like, how do you see it maybe playing a factor in that stuff?
Great question. So first of all, I believe it is the great awakener. And I believe that mushrooms, we are coming into a time where COVID rocked our worlds. And this generation of children coming into the parents who just went through it, and the children that went through it, and the children they are going to birth to bring the ability to navigate and be resilient, and the ability to be comfortable with futures that are unknown, that the mushroom is a beautiful bridge. It is a gentle teacher, beckoning, whispering, and welcoming people to recognize their power, to recognize their inner knowing, to take the spaciousness and the pause, to play. It's very, very playful. And I think that in the next 3 to 5 years, we're moving in a direction where, just like cannabis was legalized in many, many places, and I believe that mushrooms are moving in the direction of being legalized in a mass scale, not just, currently where it's at. And a lot of, I think that the reason certain things don't get legalized sooner is because of control.
Right.
I think that certain big pharma companies and different things just want to, have control.
Right.
And it's been what's been familiar for a long time. And so money and governments and people do what they think is familiar. I think it's the big awakener because I think it's beckoning the change. And I think it's a wave. I think it's it's building the momentum, just like when the tide comes, it's building the momentum, and it's gathering its army. It's gathering its people that understand how it works with you. And I think it's a very symbiotic, very collaborative, relationship-based experience. And I think it's a great healer. It had so many varietals. It's not just for the psychedelic part of it. It's so many varietals with so much wisdom, with so much, the meatiness to it. And it's sustainable in farming, and you can actually live off of it. Like you can live your whole life. It gives brain clarity. It gives healthy, resources, which you can name way more than me. But all of that for me is why it's not a fabricated thing.
Right.
It's nature's gift.
Absolutely.
And I think that it will be fabricated. I think it will be taken to be fabricated. And I think that what we're asking for, and what some of the slowness of the timeline of it's becoming legalized in its different ways of being used, I think is so that we can do it in a really holistic and aware way, rather than a mass production, make all the money way.
Right.
And I feel like because of her depth, the depth of the mushroom, the depth of the fungi's intelligence, she has a say in how it's going. And so I think it's going to be mass produced. I think it's going, and not mass produced like losing quality. I think it's going to be mass sought after.
Like a big wave.
I think people are going to really long for its healing properties, its brain clarity properties.
Yeah.
Especially in the realm of a timeline where we have a lot of people dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Absolutely.
I actually think it's going to be one of the things that changes that whole entire trajectory.
Yeah.
I think it's going to change autism.
Wow.
I mean, I'm making big statements.
I love it.
None of it is based in any kind of reality,
Sure.
but it's based inside of intuition.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that things that have been unanswered is because we haven't used the help from nature that is there in a way to harness the healing nature of when you're in a beautiful symbiotic relationship with something and it works with you, that you can actually heal.
Yeah. Well said. I love that. Thank you. And we're on the same page. Obviously, I'm super passionate about mushrooms, and I've been sharing this with you for the last several months, that we're working on a legal psychedelic microdose using a mushroom that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And, studies have shown, especially in Russia, where it's been studying on thousands of people, that it really, really helps with anxiety, depression, dementia, addiction, like major, major things. So I think your intuition is spot on that this mushroom is, and many others are going to come in here and play a radical wave in healing and mental health and just bringing people back to nature, which is so important. So thank you. I'm so glad we're on the same page about that. It feels great.
Something I want to add.
Yeah.
This is a silly thing.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Jurassic Park?
Years ago when I was a kid.
Okay. So the very first Jurassic Park, this guy tries to steal sorry, spoiler alert. The guy tries to steal all of these different, the eggs or the little, whatever,
the vials,
fertilized vials.
Yeah.
And they say, first of all the animals have a certain lysine. So if they get out of hand, we can stop feeding them lysine. And what one of the doctors comes that's evaluating whether they should say yes to this says, you understand the root of survival, they will figure it out. And so then consequent Jurassic Parks, they've all figured it out and they mass produce and, there's only males and now there's all of a sudden eggs and females and all of this stuff happening. So I believe that the innovation of mushrooms is that currently there's a certain genus and species of mushrooms that exist. I don't know how many there are. Let's just call it 457 different genus species, okay? And I believe that because of the combination of some of them and because of the unique, like if we really get good at listening to what we need it to solve for, and we come from a holistic and attuned, reverent, and reciprocal connection with nature, she will show us the unique concoction of mushroom that will be birthed over the next 3 to 5 years that will do things we've never seen.
Yeah.
And I think that COVID needed to happen to push the pushback of how certain things are asked of us and how independent things are going to come together. And I think that what we're trying to do universally is come to homeostasis and harmony again. And I believe the mushroom is a bridge.
I agree.
It's a wild thing, but that's what I think.
I'm with you. I'm right there with you. I believe it's a bridge. I believe it's a bridge to wellness. And, I don't think that wellness is a starting point. I think, or I don't think it's an end goal.
It's a starting
point. Yeah, sorry. I think it's a starting point just to get back to where we belong, which is that feeling of well. And we've been so disconnected from that through all this technology and stuff like that. But it's all part of it. It's all part of this big picture that we came here for and we chose to do. And I'm so excited for it. As you also know, I'm working on another brand that's pretty far out there that's called Codes. And Codes for me is getting a new perspective. Like if you get a new code, it's like you have a new perspective. And with the new perspective, you now have a different trajectory and now you're going in a different direction. And you've shared some wonderful codes with us here today about intuition and nature and relationships and all this stuff. If you could give the audience just one more code to leave them on, be like, this is a code that, has been very impactful for your life and you want to share with them, what code would that be?
I love that you asked this. So I would say that it's the womb code. And in any part of your life where you are birthing something, a new version of you, a new venture, a new financial breakthrough, a new breakthrough in science and technology, wherever you're birthing something, to work on defining what you long to birth, how to nurture the birth. What does nurturing, loving, nourishment mean to you, especially for those people that didn't grow up feeling nurtured and loved, to define it for themselves and then build an entire practice, literally an everyday, daily practice of attuning to the essence of the womb. So if you're male, your relationship to the womb is you were in your mother's womb. So you have a relationship to womb.
Right, you've been there.
For a woman, you are in your mother's womb and you carry a womb. except for a birth defect, you carry a womb. So the coding is in you because you were of it. You to get here on the planet, unless you were born out of a test tube, you were housed inside of a womb. And so there is a consciousness of the womb. And if we can understand that there's reciprocity and reverence to the birthing of anything, and we give it more time than we normally would, we give it more space to gestate, and we relate to love and grace as the umbilical cord to whatever it is that we're creating, with the outcome and desire, because my highest value is freedom, that when you birth what you're doing and you honor the womb that you housed that in and gave it everything you could give it with love and grace and reciprocity and reverence, then what that will produce for you is the highest quality, the highest impact, the most high vibrational connection that you can have.
I love that. It's really like you're giving birth to a child, like it, which is what else would you love more than that?
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's a great code of the womb.
Code of the womb.
I remember that now. Thank you. That's wonderful. Monika, I know you're working on some amazing things in this world. The Asraya group is one of them that I'm fortunate enough to be a part of. Do you want to talk about that at all, or anything else that you're working on? Or
Yeah. So there are a few things that I'm working on.
Please.
Asraya is an incredible community. And inside of that community, we blend AI and future ideas and technology and how to make the future different. We blend indigenous wisdom and ancient wisdom. What were our predecessors? You know, what were the ancient Egyptians? What were the Native Americans? What were the Incans? What were the Mayans? What technologies did they use? What was the information where all these pyramids that are both above ground and hidden beneath the ground when we do satellite awareness, like how can we connect to that amazing wisdom and high level of mathematical and technical advancement way back before it should have been?
Right.
How do we convene with that to make a brighter future, a better future, a more equanimable and reciprocal and reverent community of people and community of entrepreneurs? So we are having beautiful conversations. We talk about wisdom, and we talk about AI, and we talk about imagination and activating, stretching the mind based on how the future is predictable or unpredictable. And it's just been a really exciting pathway to be on, because I feel like I'm in an incubator and a think tank with people that are at the cutting edge of ideas and the cutting edge of wanting to change the old paradigm of top-down authority and the old paradigm of a very centralized way of doing everything. Like, we're not completely decentralized, but we long to understand how to live more harmoniously between the two and be the bridge between the two, as opposed to fully one or fully the other. Like, how can Asraya be the bridge between the two? So I'm really excited about that. And, you know, we are having founding citizens, which I really love the terminology of that, because you're a part of the community. You're not coming to learn from us. You're coming to teach us.
Right.
You're coming to be a part of it. You're coming to take the gap out of the things that are missing in the world that you feel very strongly about, and think about them and think tank them and understand how to really grow and build. So I love that. And then in terms of my business and what I'm growing, so I graduated from a school called the University of Santa Monica. It's where I got my master's in spiritual psychology. And for the last 15 years, my husband and I have worked with many, many entrepreneurs, leaders, people that are masters of what they're good at, in the way to balance between their unbelievable activation and wanting to create outcome and result, and them being the greatest version of themselves. And we identify patterns, and we identify gifts, and we identify ways to elevate all these different areas of life. And for a couple of years now, I've gotten the pull and the pull and the pull. Like, when are you starting your school? When are you starting your school, Monika? When are you starting your school? And it's been like, well, I'm good with my one-on-one clients. I'm really good with the classes that I teach, and I'm really good with all of this. And I really love to be a part of, what you're doing, what you're doing. I really love to give. I am of service. That is at the core of my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I can no longer ignore the call.
Mm.
So the school is called Entelechy.
Mm. Great
And
name.
entelechy is a word that Aristotle coined, and it means the realization of potential.
Mm.
So the entelechy of a tadpole is a frog. The entelechy of an acorn is a mighty oak tree. The entelechy of a human being from a sperm and an egg coming together and fertilizing.
Mm.
So in this school that I'm putting together and developing, it will be a blend of some of the principles of heart-centered living,
Mm-hmm.
of spiritual psychology, of business, of impact, of collaboration and connection. And at the core of all of it, building the most profound and powerful incubator for relationships that has ever existed on the planet.
Fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. That sounds
Thanks.
super exciting. And wow, kudos to you. And I wish you many, many years of success with all this. This is fantastic. Where can people find you, Monika, if they want to reach out to you or connect with you? Where should they reach out?
Yeah, so you can go to Monika Zands Coaching on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me, Monika Zands, on LinkedIn. And you can go to monikazands.com. And Monika is spelled with a K, MONIKAZANDS.com.
Awesome.
And I love to connect.
Mm.
So even if you have a question or you want to explore something, that makes my heart soar.
Oh.
There's no question that's the wrong question. And your time is your time. So I value people's questions and their time. So if they want to connect with me on Instagram and DM me, if they want to connect with me through email, they can do that.
Mm. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Such a wonderful soul. This was so
Thank you.
enjoyable. Thank you for coming on. And I look forward to,
many
yes.
more.
Yes, exactly.
All the things.
Thank you, Monika.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.